What's up guys, Ben here and welcome to Motivation to Invest. Peter Thiel is the billionaire entrepreneur turned venture capitalist. From the age of 6, he was a junior chess champion in the US before heading to Stanford to study law and then co-founding PayPal along with the great Elon Musk. When eBay purchased PayPal for $1.5 billion in 2002, Peter Thiel became a millionaire and got a cut of $55 million.
Thiel was a derivatives trader before co-founding PayPal at 31 years old.
So how did you come up with the idea for PayPal?
We were trying to come up, we were looking at all the new payments companies where people were trying to start on the internet in the 90s, and we realized that you had to do something with real money, and you had to do something where you could get people involved who weren't signed up yet. And so the brainstorm, the main insight was to link money and email.
Peter Thiel is also famous for being Facebook's first outside investor, investing just $500,000 for a massive 10% of Facebook. He then sold his shares in Facebook in 2012 for over $1 billion, but still remains on the board of directors. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg stated he'd learned a lot from Peter Thiel. So in this video, I'm going to reveal Peter Thiel's top 10 rules for success, both in business and in life. Be sure to watch this video to the end for a very special bonus clip. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Coming in, flex, I just wanna win.
Welcome back guys to Motivation to Invest. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to me if you guys could smash that like button. That helps out with the YouTube algorithm, which allows us to continue creating more great content like this for you guys. In addition, if you would like some exclusive stock market investing tips and stock market picks, which I personally have invested into, then you should definitely think about subscribing to this channel. Be sure to turn the notification bell on, that way you'll get notified when a great stock is at a great price and I am investing into it. So with that being said, let's get into the video. Rule number 10, be open to learning new things.
Assembling a crew of people who are very smart, very fast learners was kind of the key to a success in a startup, as opposed to trying to get someone who had, if they had 10 years experience doing something, that's great. But the more fundamental characteristic is, would they learn fast on the new problems and the new challenges?
Yeah, no, it always feels wrong to be anti-experience, but the place where it can backfire is if the experience makes you think that you know everything.
Yes.
And so it's again, it's important to know things and it's important to be open to learning more. And in theory, experience is a plus. In practice, it's often a bit of a minus because people are less open to learning new things, or they're more set on doing a particular job. In the context of a startup, which is always very tricky, where you have small numbers of people, and people need to be very flexible about the roles, and the roles change as the company gets built.
Rule number 9, you are the entrepreneur of your life.
You are the entrepreneur of your life, and you can decide, what you're going to do, what you're going to prioritize, and you should never forget that you have a tremendous amount of freedom as it is to make these very basic decisions on what you're going to do with your life, and you can start anytime you want.
Rule number 8, understand what the customer wants better than them.
This is sort of like the Steve Jobs question. Do you think you should focus on making something that you believe people want or something that you want?
I definitely think I would focus it should be on something that people want. But I think the nuance on this is you shouldn't. There's always a question whether you're making the judgment or you're taking some survey of people to make the judgment. And so I'm very much in the Steve Jobs camp of you want to have like this ESP link to the population at large and understand what they want better than they understand themselves. And I take the view that people don't generally know what they want. And so if you ask them surveys, if you do market studies, you will not actually get the right answer. And so there is something about sort of this inspired, figuring out a very inspired intuition about what the world as a whole wants.
Rule number 7, do one thing uniquely well.
The most critical thing for every startup is to be doing one thing uniquely well, better than anybody else in the world. Technology is a fundamentally global business, and the really great technology companies are doing something significantly better than anybody else in the world. And you want to be in that sort of a position. I think if you're just starting a business, one of the questions that's always valuable to answer is, what do you know that's true that nobody else understands? Or more prosaically, what great business exists that nobody is building?
Rule number 6, don't put yourself in a box.
I have seen people, and it happens to everybody no matter what it is, I've seen people rip you apart on both sides for both. How does that, how does that drive you? Does that drive you at all? Does that on political correctness of having to conform and being what everybody says you're supposed to be, does that drive you at all?
Well, it's you try to ignore it to some extent. You try not to, but you don't try to put yourself into any of these very uncomfortable straitjackets, and you don't want. And I think that's what's so pernicious about all the identity politics, that we all have to be in this category. We're all the same. I think people are all different. We're all I'm somewhat idiosyncratic, but I think all of us are. All of us are idiosyncratic in different ways. And I think this is something that most people experience, that they're being put into boxes way more than they're comfortable. There's this interview question I always like asking people. Tell me something that's true that very few people agree with you on. And it's a very hard question to answer. And it's not because people don't have answers. They actually have lots of answers to it. It's because they're uncomfortable answering it in the context of an interview, because the answer has to be something the person asking you won't agree. And we're always nervous about doing that. We always want to fit in, and this pressure to fit in is really powerful.
Rule number 5, value substance over status.
On an individual level, I think it's always really good if there's something that you're incredibly passionate about and just sort of are find to be intrinsically interesting, and that people pursue that. And so one of the resolutions I came up with a number of years ago was to always value substance over status, substance over prestige. If I sort of was giving my younger self advice on what to do or how to think about one's life, I probably would still go to Stanford. I might still go to law school, but I'd ask a lot more questions why I was doing these things. And I think if I was honest about it, too much of it was driven by prestige and status, and not quite enough about really the substance of trying to learn things. And I had sort of this. I sort of think of it as this sort of crazy rolling quarter life crisis, and sort of culminated in this big New York law firm where from the outside everybody wanted to get in, from the inside everybody wanted to get out. After I lasted 7 months and 3 days, and after. When I left, one of the people down the hall said, "It's so reassuring to see you leave, Peter. I had no idea it was possible to escape from Alcatraz," which again, and all you had to do was go through the front door. But our identity, people's identities get so wrapped up in the things they compete for that it was inconceivable for people to actually do that. And then the question was, well, how had I ended up there? Why had I not thought about that more? And I think it was that I had taken too many of these shortcuts of valuing sort of what was prestigious, what was conventional, over what I really wanted to do. So I think always substance over status.
Rule number 4, solve valuable problems.
I actually think you should think twice before starting certain types of businesses. So I think there are probably too many bad businesses getting started and not enough good ones. So I don't think there's anything about entrepreneurship per se that is good. You know, I was talking to one of my friends a few years ago. I was asking him, what do you want to be doing in 5 or 10 years? Oh, it's really clear. I want to be an entrepreneur. That's like saying I want to be rich. I want to be famous. And I don't think
those are good things. Being rich and famous are good.
They're not good as direct goals. Like if you have that as your sole goal, you're unlikely to, I think, really succeed. And so I think you become an entrepreneur because you're working on an important problem nobody else is working on. I think you should start a business if you have if you're working on a problem that otherwise would not get solved.
Rule number 3, aim for a monopoly.
I think that if you're a founder or entrepreneur, what you want to aim for is monopoly. You want to aim to build a company that is one of a kind and that it's so far differentiated from the competition that it's not even competing. And I think this is the conventional wisdom is always that capitalism and competition are somehow synonyms. I believe they're antonyms. A capitalist is someone who's in the business of accumulating capital. A world of perfect competition is a world where all the profits are competed away. If you want to compete like crazy, then you should just open a restaurant in Chicago. And I think the great companies like Google, which is sort of the paradigm example I use, has had no serious competition in search since 2002, when it definitively distanced itself from Yahoo and Microsoft. And as a result, it's been generating enormous cash flows for the last 12 years.
Rule number 2, make sure people align properly.
One part that I'm always very focused on is sort of the structure of these companies and how well are people aligned. And so you can, making sure that people are aligned properly, not just that they say they are. I think this is sort of a very legal kind of a framework to think about what are people's incentives, are they going to be aligned or not? And I think you want to both have formal alignment, where you set the structure right, and you want to have informal alignment, where the people would naturally try to work together well in one way or another. And I think that somehow tends to get obscured in all these other ways. There's always a prehistory question I like to ask founders of companies, which is how did you meet? What's the prehistory of the company before you got started? And I find that to be a really instructive set of questions to ask. A bad answer is something like, we met a week ago at a social networking function, at a business networking function. We decided to start a company because we both wanted to be entrepreneurs. That's like saying, I married the first person I met at the slot machines in Las Vegas. And you might hit the jackpot, but it's probably a really bad idea. And a much better answer is, we've been talking about this for a long time. Maybe one of us is more on the tech side, the other one's more on the business side. We have these sort of complementary skills. And so I think this question of alignment and structure is incredibly important.
And finally, rule number 1, trends are overrated.
The general theme I would suggest is that all trends are overrated. And so if you think about current trends in technology, healthcare IT software, education software, overrated. SaaS enterprise software, really overrated. Big data, cloud computing, if you hear those words, you need to think fraud. You need to run away as fast as you possibly can. And the reason these buzzwords tell you that something these buzzwords are sort of like a tell in poker that people are bluffing, and that there's nothing, that the business is not undifferentiated, because the buzzwords tell you that it is one company of a category that's undifferentiated from the others in that category, and therefore are symptomatic somehow of a lot of competition and a bad business idea. And so, you don't want to be the 4th online pet food company. You don't want to be the 10th thin film solar panel company. You don't want to be the 1,000th restaurant in San Francisco. And so there is something about, if you can describe what a company is doing very straightforwardly by referencing these buzzwords, these categories that already exist, that's actually a sign that it's a pretty bad that it's a pretty bad idea.
And now for a very special bonus clip. It's all about finding the secret path.
Always, when you hear this question, tell me something that's true that very few people agree with you on. People will sort of intuitively say, well, there aren't, we've already figured everything out. There are no answers to this, that everything's already understood. And I want to suggest that there are actually many answers left to this question. And I sort of suggest this three-part division into conventional truths, which everybody understands. So it's like 1 + 1 = 2. The Earth goes around the sun. These things are true. They're not terribly valuable. They don't give you any edge because they're already understood by everybody else in the world. There are mysteries, which are things that are impossible to figure out. But then I think in between conventions and mysteries, there are what I call secrets, things that are hard but possible to figure out. And if you work at them, you can figure them out. And it is my thesis that there are many secrets left to be discovered, that if we work at them, we can do them in many, many different areas. Now, there are certainly areas where everything has been discovered. So if you were like in the 18th century and you looked at a map, you could say, well, I don't really know what's at this part of the map, and you could become an explorer and you could find out. And that's not the case anymore today, since we've mapped the whole surface of the planet. There are no secrets left in geography. Or if you were in the 19th century and said, well, I want to become a chemist and discover some new elements, that probably would not be a good idea in the 21st century. So periodic table of elements, the map of the world, these are sort of complete. There are no secrets left there. But most subjects are not like geography or chemistry. Most subjects are still much more on the frontier, and they're ones where we can come up with many types of answers. And I think that I do think that one of the things that often is very is sort of this intuition that's very true in many of these companies, is that people think that there is something they can figure out. If you think you can figure it out, you'll work really hard at it. So at PayPal, I thought there was some really interesting stuff we could figure out around digital currency and changing the nature of money. We actually didn't quite succeed in doing it. We didn't succeed in replacing the US dollar with a new world currency, which was our crazy goal in 2000. But that sort of deep substantive thinking about cryptocurrency helped inspire us to come up with an architecture for the system that turned out to make for a really good payment system in all these other ways. And so I think there are sort of a lot of these secrets left. One of the reasons that people are skeptical of secrets or of their ability to find them is they sort of look around, they think, the world is flat, there's 7 billion other people on this planet, and so it's always either someone else will have figured it out already, or it's impossibly hard, and so I'm not going to be the one to figure this out. And obviously the sort of the paradox is that when everybody believes that to be true, then nobody is looking, and then if you become the one person who looks, you have a much better chance than you might think. And I think we are in this sort of strange world where people are very much believe in globalization. They very much believe in the flatness of the world, and so strangely, people are not trying very hard and looking for all these secrets, all these great new businesses that could be started.
I hope you guys found Peter Thiel's words of wisdom very valuable, and it gave you some interesting insight. Which of his rules for success resonated the most with you? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll join in the discussion. In addition, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. That allows us to continue creating more great content like this for you guys. In addition, if you would like more investing tips and exclusive stock market picks, which I personally have invested into, then you should definitely subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Coming in, flex, I just wanna win, LABB, who we running with, coming in, flex, I just wanna win,